Hi students, this is a presentation about changing attributes of a rectangular prism, and that is SOL 8.6b. Your learning target as we go through this video, this presentation, is I can describe how changing one measured attribute of a rectangular prism affects the volume and surface area. So you may be asking yourself, what is an attribute? Attribute refers to length, width, and height of a rectangular prism. This video is going to describe the changes to volume when we change an attribute.
Hi guys, it's Mrs. Talley, and we're going to talk about rectangular prisms today. So the first question is, what is a rectangular prism? So just to review, a rectangular prism is a 3D shape that you can pick up and hold in your hand, and every side is a rectangle. So the front, the top, the side, the bottom, the other side, and the back. All 6 faces of this rectangular prism are rectangles. So that's why it's called a rectangular prism. If any one of these sides or faces was a different shape, it would not be a rectangular prism. Okay, so you hear rectangular prism, think cereal box. So the first question we're going to answer is, what would happen if I took this cereal box and I doubled the height? So think about that for a second. I want to take this attribute right here, and I'm going to multiply it by 2. So how much more cereal would I have? Well, here we go. I'm going to scoot back so the camera picks it up. You now have twice as much cereal as what you started with. So doubling the height of the rectangular prism doubled the volume of the cereal. The other attribute we can look at is the length. If I double the length, I have double the cereal. And finally, the width, which runs this way. If I double the width, there would be 2 boxes stacked together. I have doubled the volume. And it doesn't matter what number I multiply the attribute by, the volume is going to change by that exact same amount. So instead of doubling or multiplying by 2, let's multiply by 3. 3 times as much cereal. Okay? So no matter what you do to any of the 3 attributes, length, width, or height, your volume changes in that exact same way. In fact, we can multiply by a fraction. And if you've been paying attention, you know that multiplying by a fraction is the same thing as dividing, because you're taking the height and you're going to cut it in half. Like this one. And I just estimated a half. So just go with it. So this is half the cereal box. The volume is half as much. I can only put half as much cereal in this box compared to this box. Okay? So no matter what you do to the length, width, or height of the rectangular prism, you have changed your volume by that exact same amount.
Okay, so I would like for you to write this down so you have it to refer back to. When you change an attribute, length, width, or height of a rectangular prism, the volume changes by the exact same amount. And I'd like for you to pause the video so you can write this down completely and then push play when you're ready to go on. Next up, we're going to see what happens to surface area when we make those changes.
Hi guys. Okay, we talked about volume changing in our rectangular prism. Now let's talk about surface area. And just to remind you, surface area is the amount of material you would need to create this box. So it's the area of this space plus this space plus this space, that space, and that space, all added together. So when we talk about surface area, we're talking about for the entire box. Don't forget the bottom and the top. That's a common mistake that students make. So have you ever wondered why the family size boxes of cereal are cheaper per ounce than the smaller boxes? Well, reasons for that is that it doesn't cost as much to make a huge box. So we're going to pretend for a second that we are going to create a box that holds twice as much cereal. And like we showed in the earlier video, if you double one attribute, you've doubled the volume. But look what happens. If I'm going to create a huge box to hold 2 bags of cereal, remember there's one bag of cereal in each of these boxes. I'm going to create a huge box. I'm using less cardboard because I'm not using this face or this face. I'm sticking them together like this. So the top is twice as big. And that side is twice as big. Remember, we're looking at the amount of cardboard. And this is twice as big and that. But you're not using this face or this face because we smashed them together, right? You don't buy a giant box of cereal and have a cardboard divider in the middle of it. So the surface area from the original to the doubled size, it is bigger, but it's not exactly doubled because not everything doubled. And that can be a little confusing. Just remember, if I stick 2 boxes of cereal together, I get twice as much cereal, so I have doubled the volume, but I've got 2 faces of the rectangular prism to cut out. So it is bigger, not exactly doubled. And I hope that that makes sense. Now remember, we can say that it gets bigger, we can't put a definite number on it. Let's look the other direction as well. If I start here, and I take my half a box, remember we said it's half the volume because it only holds half as much. It doesn't make it half the surface area though, because this face is exactly the same as this face. So that didn't go down by half. And this length here is exactly the same as this length, right? So the only thing that changed was the height. So it is smaller. This is less cardboard than the big box. It's not exactly half. So if you multiply your attribute by a number greater than 1, your surface area goes up, but not by the exact same amount. And if you multiply an attribute by a fraction, which is also known as dividing, like half, it does get smaller, but not by exactly half. Okay? It's weird to not get feedback, so if you have any questions, please post a comment and let me know so that we can address them.
All right, note time again. Please write this down so you have it to refer back to later. Changing an attribute, length, width, or height of a rectangular prism will change the surface area, but not by the same amount. And we have one more slide after this where we're going to get more detailed. So copy this one down, and then we're going to go on to the next slide, which tells you multiplying by a number greater than 1 will increase the surface area. Multiplying by a number less than 1 will decrease the surface area. So your numbers less than 1 are your fractions or decimals, and greater than 1 could be 1.5, it could be 2, 3, 4, on to infinity. The surface area will get bigger, but not by the same amount. And if you're multiplying by that fraction, it'll decrease the surface area, but not by the exact same amount. And this concludes our presentation on changing attributes.